Welcome to Authentic Living with Roxanne on Global Voice Radio. Join Roxanne Derhodge and her thought-provoking conversations, the catalyst to live your life to the fullest.
Hi everyone, it's Roxanne Derhodge again with Authentic Living with Roxanne. So thanks again for tuning in. Another week. Today I have a special guest, someone I met. It's going back about 3 years ago right now, Carol.
Right.
Back in Baltimore, where we were attending an event together. And Carol, what actually interviewed me at her podcast, I think it's almost about 2.5 years ago now, and how things have changed, haven't they? Now I have my podcast, and Carol was so gracious to come back and to be my guest. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Carol and what all the amazing things that she's done. Carol has written a memoir, which is called Battered Hope, and she has a blog called Never Give Up Hope, which she does. She's also a columnist with the Fun magazine, and she won an award, 2018 the award, Global Award, One Women, and this is given to women who face their fears, and she was able to win that award. And Carol, you can let me know if I'm getting some of these details incorrect. She does a bi-weekly show where it's on Never Give Up Hope, where she interviews people that have been through insurmountable obstacles and have figured out very creative ways to get through it. And along with being a motivational speaker, she has a TV show, and she's a writer. And she also does something fun, which is all women like to hear. She owns 2 jewelry stores, which I would love to hear more about, Carol. And she's a certified health coach, a wife, a mother, a grandmother, which is the fun part, I'm sure. And her and her husband have rescued over 30 dogs. Wow. That's amazing. So I would love to hear more about that too. I'm sure everybody else would love to hear about that. So Carol, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. So it's been a couple of years, but is there anything on your bio that I missed that you think you should mention that the listeners should know about?
Well, as you were talking about it, I thought, my goodness, I'm a busy person.
But two shows a week. That's a lot. So I know when we were booking a fair amount out. I know what it takes to do 1 a week, but 2, and you're still on that routine to get 2 done a week every week.
I try to maintain, of course, the status on Google, which is I'm number 1 in the area of hope.
That's amazing.
I know.
That's amazing.
It shocked me. Someone pointed it out to me, so it's exciting. But it just shows you that is a subject that people really are interested in, that they need, that they want, that they listen to. Never ever give up.
And we all need hope. We all need to, and we know that life sometimes throws us certain things, and it's really about trying to find that sense of hope again, if it has been like in your case, the term battered or shattered. It takes a lot sometimes, because sometimes you're pulling at little crumbs to try to kind of figure it out again. So Carol, tell the listeners about your path and how you started in this field, and what inspired you to get into the field to offer or create hope in the world for people that listen to you or watch you on your TV show or coach with you.
Well, we have 3 hours, right?
just under.
Okay, good. Well, I'll tell you the story of how it all came about, which I think is very humorous, and will probably give you a better understanding of why I do what I do. I have lived in a horrendous life, let's call it, of problems, of circumstances that have been negative. Everything from being, my mother died when I was very young, to getting cancer when I was in my 20s. The doctor telling me I had 2 years to live. I decided to find my own cure because I didn't like the fact that he said hysterectomy or death, and I refused to accept that. And just many other things, being gang raped when I was also in my 20s, left for dead. My husband and I lost 2 businesses due to the practices that that our partner had gotten involved in, and they basically robbed us blind. It just, went on and on to the point where you didn't want to pick up the telephone because you didn't know what bad news you were going to get, and who died and who took advantage of you and who stole this from you. And we had one home completely vandalized, another burned down by fire. It just went on and on to the point where, like I said, you have a real struggle to get up and put one foot in front of the other. But probably the way that I was raised, it didn't really matter what happened to me. I always decided to look at the bright side and to have the right attitude, because I knew that was the only thing that would get me through. Just like with the cancer diagnosis, that was really a pivotal place in my life where I knew that I had to beat this. And so at that point, you don't give up hope, because you always are that attitude of, I can do this, I can beat this. And that in itself is creating an environment of hope, even around your own, your own mental stability, right? You've got to take something that you can hold on to. And for me, it was hope, or go insane. So the humorous part of the story is, of course, my daughter knew this, and this is, of course, the daughter I was supposed to have, so that's another miracle baby, because I was 40 when I had my first child.
Wow.
It took 14 years after the doctor gave me that diagnosis, but I completely turned my health around, and that also triggered me to study health and become a health coach as well. So she kept pushing me, Mom, you've got to write your story. You've got to write your story. You've got to get it out there. There's so many people, even in her generation, as the generations are living in more and more fear and trepidation than we ever did, back when I was growing up. And there's just so many more things that they have to contend with. She says, my generation needs to hear your story and give them that hope that no matter what happens, what they have to endure, that they too can come out the other end. Well, I'm not a writer, and dabbled here and there and whatever, and I didn't want to do that. And she kept pushing me for about many years anyway. And then she went away to Costa Rica after she had just bought a puppy. And the puppy was a little miniature Dachshund where their legs are about an inch long. And he loved his mommy, and his mommy went away. And so she asked if we would take care of the dog, of course. And so he left, and one evening my husband and I are sitting in the living room when we hear this noise, the thump, the thump, the thump, the thump. And here coming down the stairs was this little, Louis Vuitton was his name, Louis Vuitton, the little miniature Doxy, and he's bringing down his Louis Vuitton carrier and down the stairs, and it's heavy, it's 3 times the size of him, He gets it down, scampers back up the stairs, and he proceeded for that evening to bring down every single one of his possessions, his bowl, his leash, his like, we're sitting there like a show watching this go on. This is taking him a long time. He goes up the stairs pretty quick, bringing everything down, and he gets everything down. He then proceeded to jump and put his things in this carrier. This dog had watched his mommy pack her suitcase, and he wanted to go with mommy. I mean, it's an incredibly smart breed, obviously.
Wow, I've never heard anything like that, Carol.
I neither. But we're sitting there with our mouths watching, like, this is the best entertainment ever. And he proceeded to get everything that he owned into this carrier, and then he jumped inside and tried to, with his teeth, pull the zipper closed.
Wow.
I couldn't believe it. Well, we left him there. It was late in the evening. We left him there. In the morning, we went down, opened up, and there he is. And he looks up like, "You're not mommy." Like, it was tear jerking. Anyway, so there's one of them right behind.
I see that.
Anyway, so we couldn't believe it. So I started making notes. And during the 2 weeks that we were boarding this little dog, did incredibly funny things. And so instead of me telling her, I put them in a book with pictures.
Oh.
Hardbound, I gave it to her at Christmas. And she read it, crying and laughing at the same time. She said, Mom, will you now write your story?
Mm.
And so that's how the whole thing started.
Wow.
Did the title, and also we covered the book.
So your daughter did both.
Yes.
Wow.
And she said, I have seen me bruised, beaten, battered, and never broken.
Mm.
And that's why she gave the book that title. Wrote the story. It took me a few years. And then from there, when I started getting the reviews and people were talking about how they could relate to different parts of the book, I knew then I had to hear other people's stories.
Mm.
And so I just put it out there on LinkedIn. If you have a story of where you've been beaten, etc., and surviving terrible circumstances, I want to do it. I want to share it. Within the first hour, I had 100 people respond, and that's what's gone from there. And now, like I said,
Wow.
never ever been recorded in 140 countries, and the stories are remarkable. And it's all coming because of that little doxy.
That's what I love that story. And I'm picturing it in my brain as I'm looking at my stairs, right? And I'm like, that must have taken him a long time. But
like I said, it was our evening entertainment. It was a very long
okay, so Carol, I didn't know. I may have known, but maybe I forgot. But obviously, early years, you probably were in a lot of dark spaces, right? And with some of the things that you talked about. And then you get this cancer diagnosis. Like, how did you pull hope then out of yourself? I mean, through desperation, like you said, being gang raped, and left for dead, at some point you got to say, wow, what's going on in this world, right? With all these things happening. How did you find that space within yourself to be able to connect to that hope?
I've been asked that many times, and I never really have come up with a solid answer other than my father was a minister. I grew up in a home where faith was very strong, and I knew that God would take care of me no matter what happened to me. So that's where my hope source came from. And then it just, when you feel that God has helped you in one area, then you know He's going to help you in another. And so that's where I put my hope, my trust, my faith, and it just becomes a lifestyle. I've interviewed a lot of people who have put their faith and their hope in many different things, but it becomes a lifestyle because you have the right to choose how you're going to respond or to react to anything that happens to you. And I push attitude, and anybody that has gone through a lot of things and they share their stories with me, the same thing. It comes down to attitude. Just like a perfect example is you can choose to forgive or not.
Mm-hmm.
That choice lies in you. Who gets hurt by not forgiving is you. And
I think a lot of people struggle with that. I think, when we talk about, say, for instance, something like cancer, and I've had another guest on, and she talked about being so disconnected to herself and what she had done to herself physically, emotionally, spiritually, that she recognizes now in recovery what she was doing to herself by holding on to certain things. So, when I've heard in my kind of tenure in practice, I've heard horrendous stories. Like, I wish, these are things that I never wish another human being to hear. But much as to have people tell me that story, and I'm like, my goodness. And then I hear the resilience, and I see people wanting exactly what you're talking about, which is hope, peace of mind, to be able to sit in the moment and just enjoy something simple like, maybe having a good conversation with a friend or having a nice meal with a family member or family. You know, they just want everybody, we all want the same things. Would you agree?
Yes.
Right? But sometimes what happens is with what I know, and obviously I'm sure you hear this over and over again with the people, it's the triggers and the things that come up that are so debilitating because the brain and the body is trying to help you through. The brain and the body is equipping you to be able to survive, but it's kind of a double-edged sword or a bit of a curse in that you survive, but it's the shrapnel or the aftermath of what that unresolved triggers and where it takes you either within your thoughts, within your feelings, within your body, that keeps you trapped and protected, which now you don't need to be protected anymore, but you have to, like you said, you have to do something different. Like in your case, you said it was faith. What other stories, what kind of things have you heard? Now that I'm going to assume is it mostly women that you interview, or do you find men also come forward? Well, okay. What are some of the core elements? And I'm sure you've heard a ton of traumatic stories. What are some of the key things that you find that people use to get through trauma?
One, I think the key, and no matter what your spiritual place is, what your belief system is their faith and what they choose to believe in. Many people, of course, believe in God and how He can help, you through any situation, which is where I chose to put my faith. A lot of people put it in themselves. This is and so they build themselves up. And yes, I mean, as soon as you mentioned the stories, I think of 100 stories. But the core element, I think, is they have to believe in something. And when I do public speaking, what I've been saying lately is kind of my mantra, kind of like my key tagline per se for my speaking is, God knows the end of your story. And so I don't know the end of my story, but I know what I need to do to get there. And that is, I need to believe that I can make it. So if I put that faith in myself, put that faith in my God, I have to believe that I'm going to get there. Otherwise, what's going to happen? You're not going to get there. You're right. There has to be that out, and that's what hope is too. Hope is out here, but you want to attain that. You want to get there, and so you hold on to whatever thread that happens to be. And there were many times, and I'm sure you've heard the same story. You cried out and said, "Why? Why is this happening to me? It's not fair." No, it's not fair. But as a result, being able to help others, and I'm not trying to do that to sound saintly by any stretch of the imagination, but by able to help others what you have gone through is probably the greatest joy that you can ever imagine. To think that I helped someone else because of what I've done, not necessarily in the area of advice. Like, well, you should do this because this is what I did. No, but because I made it. And you can too, and to encourage them that no matter how hopeless the situation is, hold on to whatever they need to hold on to make sure that you get to the end of your story, because we all have a story.
So if someone is listening right now, and I'm sure when we look at the stats with trauma, it's, it's 1 in 3 women that has endured something, and 1 in 6 men by the time they're the age of 18, which is, that technically is like if you're in a room of 6 people, there's 2 people out of 6 that have something has happened to in their lives. And I often say, as a psychotherapist, that means it could be a small T trauma, which means that maybe my parents were neglectful, to a big T trauma, which could be anything as horrific as almost all the way of genocide or, any atrocity. So we know that can. So if someone's listening right now, which I'm hoping a lot of people have tuned in to listen, and someone's lost, maybe they're hearing you, they're thinking, wow, Carol, that sounds kind of good, God and faith and all that stuff. What would you say to a listener that's listening to us now, that's kind of thick and deep, and they're not so sure, what kind of words of wisdom would you share with them?
Well, that's a pretty heavy subject.
Yeah, I know it is, Carol.
I also wanted to say we lost a child after having him for a year. And then recently, 6 years ago now, our son, his wife, and our 2 grandchildren, for reasons still to this day unbeknown to us, chose to walk away from our family. And we have not heard a word in 6 years. How do you handle that? And
Wow.
looking back, pain is relative, right? And some people, if their kids walked away from them, they might say, "Yay!" Yeah, it was a good thing, So it definitely is relative. But because of what I had experienced in losing our son when he was a year, this is what I was talking about, where if we have the right attitude as we go through these things, we don't know when we're going to have something else happen in our life that might be very parallel. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I almost died of a broken heart when our son walked away. I was the main caregiver for the 2 children, as far as babysitting and that kind of thing. And for him to walk in one day to our store, look at us and say, first of all, 3 days before we had an anniversary, our 40th wedding anniversary, was a huge gala affair that our kids put on for us. It was absolutely beautiful. Told us how much, our son said how much he loved us. And 3 days later, he walked in the store and said, "I never want to see you again."
Oh my goodness.
And that, so there's a shock element too. And that's what I was thinking of as you were talking about, what the people when they are listening. There's many things that happen in our lives that are very shocking. And, how much can you take? And I almost literally died of a broken heart. And there are symptoms to a heartbreaking, and people have died from it, and it is that devastating. But even if, as I mentioned earlier, if you can find one thing to hold on to, just one, tomorrow's another day. If I can get through this hour, if I can, know that God is protecting me and helping me, or that I have a support system over here, or whatever, and just concentrate on that instead of concentrating on what you lost or what you're going through. That is very often what does get us through. That's my personal belief anyway.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
How shocking and devastating you can say, "Okay, I've been here before," or "so-and-so has been here," or "if I can just get through this, I can make it." And you build yourself up.
Yeah, a bit at a time, right? I often say,
baby steps.
When I get up in the morning, I can see, right? And I look out my window and I look onto the woods. So I look outside, and it's oftentimes, a sky that is different or beautiful. So I thank God that I can, or something bigger than me, that I can see that, or, I can hear my son getting up in the morning, or, knowing that I can get up and get out of bed, and these, the practice of gratitude is, and I know we hear that all the time. It sounds kind of cliche.
Yeah,
it does, but it really, it is so important. I remember when my mom was, unfortunately, about 15 years ago, my mom, out of nowhere, developed a brain tumor. And they didn't know it was developing, other than she was having, having trouble walking, sometimes breathing. We weren't sure. We thought maybe stress, those types of things. And then they rushed her in and they got an MRI done. And within minutes, they said, we have to get her into surgery, because what had happened was they had found this tumor was at the base of her brain. And they said, well, and then they go into the, what's going to happen, right? So they share with us that, okay, we're going to do the surgery, but, if anything goes wrong, she may not be able to see, smell, swallow, breathe, and I'm sitting there going, what? But then you realize, right, like what a gift it really is. And I remember, because I would run back then. And I remember, I used to always in my head go, "Oh no, it's only 1K. I've got 5K to go. Can I do this? Can I do this?" And I remember after she went into the surgery and she was fine, I remember going out for a run for the first time after, and I was grateful. I never thought I would see running that. I was grateful that I had the strength. I had the ability to see what was around me. So it's funny when you say that, it's perspective, truly, right? Because something that I looked at before from a different lens, now I looked at it as truly a gift that my body could do that, or that I could go and run again and really not have anything on my mind.
That's right.
You know, because we had been given a gift because everything worked out really well, and she got through the surgery. You know, so I think it's what you're talking about is perspective, and really trying to see the positive in whatever you have in front of you at that time.
Now, it's interesting that you brought that up about getting up in the morning and seeing, because I have a woman friend who has become a very, very close friend from me interviewing her. And it's interesting how these can often develop into these kind of relationships. When she was 39 years old, she woke up one morning totally blind.
Oh, wow.
No indication whatsoever previous to that. She had 3 small children. Her husband left her because he couldn't cope. And he did come back, and they rekindled their marriage, etc. But in the meantime, her son, who was then in later years, he was 17 years old, was attacked and for no reason beaten and stabbed to death 17 times in front of a store at 11 o'clock at night on the college campus.
And he passed away? Did he pass?
Yes,
oh, my goodness.
Because of the state they live in and some discrepancies in whatever the police report, he got off scot-free. And on and on and on. This woman has the most phenomenal attitude. And it has come possibly because of what she went through. And that's why I was stressing that you become your environment. Or you become what, I don't know the words, you're the psychotherapist, right?
Well, maybe, you know what, it truly is probably the same thing, Carol, but maybe the way we say it because of the field is different. But what I hear is we call it context dependence. If I lose my sight, then maybe my emotional ability to anticipate more emotion gets heightened.
That's right.
Now I've lost this one sense, so something else gets compensated in some other way.
And she says, I look at the heart, and I see the heart, and that comes through the other senses too. And so it's just, again, as you mentioned, perspective and how we look at anything that happens to us and decide, this is going to make me or break me. The choice is really ours. I'm going to forgive or not to forgive. You know, I'm going to move forward or stay back.
So with your keynotes, Carol, so I'm going to assume you probably do keynotes throughout the U.S. Do you do them internationally also?
I haven't yet, no.
Okay, not yet.
So
Canada. And Canada. Okay, awesome. So tell me what is it that what are some of the things that you talk about in your keynote? Pretty much, is it some of the things we're talking about now, or are there different things that you focus on when you speak?
Mostly what we're talking about now. Forgiveness is huge. Hope, of course. Looking at things from, this isn't the end of your story. I think since I've been doing that, I've been getting more and more feedback where people are so often, when they're going through trauma, they're looking at the now only. They're not looking at the future and knowing that you are going to get through, whether you've got a past bad experience or not. This may be the first one, but you are going to get through. You are going, and through is the operative word. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm going through. I'm not staying here. I'm going to get through this, and whatever means that they need, whatever sources that they need to get through that, and to maintain that this isn't the end. This isn't the end. And so essentially it is more inspirational when I speak than motivational, but it also is motivational because it very often will help people to get up, when I speak to business groups, get up and do what they want to do because it is their passion. And so we talk a lot about passion as well, and to, you know, get off your butt, get out of your comfort zone, do what you want to do. You know, I was 67 years old before I started my last career. And
67 when you started?
When I started my last career, you know, and we just,
wow.
So there's you can't put limits on yourself is what I'm trying to say. You don't have to say, well, I'm too old, or I'm too this, or I'm too that, or I don't have enough money, or whatever. You find a way to do it. And if it's what you want to do, because you know what, if you don't, nobody else will.
Absolutely. And it is, you know, you recognize when you put it from that perspective, you know, and so many people don't take the risk. They're afraid, and you know, and then they kind of feel like, if, well, I can't do that because I don't know how, and they don't have the faith again. Again, we're talking about faith and hope that something. I often say that, you know, when you go through a major change, like I have in my life before, I said, this is my explanation of it, Carol. I say it's almost like I have to go through this long, narrow, maybe dark corridor, and I'm going to go, and I'm scared, and I'm hoping that there's going to be light on the other side, but I have to keep doing it, even if it's even if I'm tiptoeing a bit at a time, because at some point only you can do it. You know, even when you're going through a tough time, you know, there's only so much people can support you, right? And after a while, then you know, people go, okay, you know, I've supported you. Now it's now your turn to kind of step into it. And a lot of times people get so scared that they won't take that path down the road because they're overwhelmed by things. Not that, I think of some of the changes I've made in my life, and it was overwhelming at the time. And
Yeah.
now I realized,
Comfortable now.
wow.
Yeah.
Had I known what I know now, you know, I would have probably picked up the pace in the dark. But you know, it's normal human instinct.
The gentleman I was coaching last week, who I've known for a number of years, and I have encouraged him to step out of his comfort zone because he has so much to offer in the area of coaching and speaking, and you know, et cetera, et cetera. And he could be a prolific writer. I mean, he's got awesome work, and he's never written anything. You know, I've read some of the stuff that he writes, like just to me, stories or whatever. And so I started to encourage him and tell him, you know, he's got to do, and he looked at me with almost tears running down his face, and he said, at my age, I'm afraid I don't have room for another failure. You know, for one thing, I don't think he's ever failed. It's his perspective, right? He's a successful man in many arenas. So I said, and I laughed at him. And I, you know, basically I said, fear of failure is one of the biggest lies that we hear. First of all, who's going to know if you fail? You're putting up your own limits or whatever, and you think, if I don't reach this or my goals, if I don't do this, I've failed. Failure is relative, right? Mm-hmm. And so who's going to know if you fail? You're the only one. And who cares what you think? You know, like basically get out there. And anyway, we chatted for a couple hours, and he got so encouraged that you're right. I said, you know, we're used to in the corporate world or the business world or whatever, if we fail, everybody knows it. Like, oh my goodness, you're embarrassed and you're humiliated and one thing. I said, if you fail with what you try to do online, who's going to know it? Your followers might fall out. And so what? You know, if you don't make the attempt. I never in a million years would have guessed that my crazy life, you know, and speaking about hope would put me as #1 in the Google search. Like, who would? You can't buy that. You know what I mean? Like,
No, that would cost a lot of money.
Yeah, you could for a lot of money, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely, that's right. But it just comes because you want it. You're going to go for it. You're not going to let anything keep you from your goal. And the other thing is, you can't beat yourself up.
Yeah.
If you have a fallback or a setback or whatever, you pick your feet up and you start again. Like, so what?
Mm-hmm.
You know,
and you always learn, right? That's what I often say.
Absolutely. And
you always think, oh, well, now I've learned I can't do that. Or maybe I should explore this differently. But you think, well, I'm not going to try that exactly the same way again. But that was a good exploration. And, you know, I think of some of the consulting that I've done over the last couple of years, and it taught me so much about myself, right? And then I learned what I didn't want, and I knew more of where I wanted to be, which, you know, positioned me exactly where I wanted to be, which is basically speaking and coaching and consulting with companies, right? And but again, had I not gone through those other situations, I may have gone down a different path. And and the belief, and I don't know if you believe, when a door shuts, this is the way I look at it, is that's the universe saying that door is not for you. And then, okay, I need to move along and find the other next door that's ajar or open for me, because those are other things that I need to explore. Whereas when I was younger, I used to think, well, why is this not working out? How come? Like I've done this, and I've done this, and then I try again, and then the universe still shuts that door. So now I kind of look at it and go, okay, that door shut. Time for me to try something a little bit differently. So I think you're right. It's mindset. And what is failing? Failing is learning a little bit more about yourself and giving you wisdom towards, whatever path you're going on. And so in reference to coaching, you do coaching with men and women. And so you said you deal with entrepreneurs, you deal with people that are going through obstacles. And just, do you do group coaching? Do you do individual coaching? What kind of coaching do you do?
I do individual, and actually just this past week, a few people have asked if we could start doing some group coaching.
Okay.
So I'm not sure what that's going to involve. And it'll be by Zoom, of course, right?
Right. Now, and do you have a community? Do you have a Battered Hope community that's online? If anybody's listening, do you, I know sometimes people start communities. Do you have something like that online, or you don't? Okay. So in reference to people getting a hold of you, I want you to, I don't know if you wanted to hold up your book again and tell people where they can get it. I would love for people, if they'd like to reach out. Is it available on your site, or is it on Amazon?
It's on both, yes. It's available on my site. And actually, if you look up Hope, if you Google Hope, I'll be there.
Well, you know what, I'm going to do that, because I know how hard it is to get your any brand up high. So, and you're just, if I put Hope.
Well, it depends upon the search, but I mean, some people say that as soon as they put Hope, and others, of course, never ever give up hope, or, it's all over the place, but it's pretty easy to remember. So never ever give up hope, or Battered Hope, or Carol Graham, or, it'll pop up. And one of my blogs is a personal blog that I like to share, mostly funny animal stories, because
Yes.
we about the animals, and that's a whole other group of people. But everybody enjoys a good story, and everybody enjoys true stories, and that's what I'm all about, is the true stories of people, my true stories. And truth is stranger than fiction, and you hear it all. This is, as you in your business, you certainly.
Oh, of course. I've heard so many amazing stories in my life, and and I always think, you can't create a story that's out there sometimes, that you think there's no way someone could have made that up. Sometimes the stories I've heard, and they're amazing, or stories of resilience, or people telling me things that they've done to get through. I often say that with my clients through the years, in my practice, I've learned hope and resilience from them, because every time I heard a story, and I'll give you an example, and when I deal with trauma stories, and there was one woman, she was gang raped, unfortunately, and had a son. And then at the time she was coming to me, he was getting of age where he was getting serious with someone. So he had not known his origins prior to, so she was trying to come forward with me to figure out what was the best way and what legacy she was trying to create, because she had done a great job with this young man, and didn't want to, in any way, like you said, the beginning of what happened was not who he became, and what kind of, he was a great son, he was a great person, but he was then asking questions because he was getting serious about someone. And I looked at the strength that it took in this woman to be able to raise this, amazing young man, and, and how she delivered, and I'm trying to remember the story, but she really, didn't get into the details, other than she said that he was, everything that she's created, it wasn't a good beginning in the relationship. and didn't share the entirety of from what I remember, but that she just looks that God gave her something that's impeccable, and to her she looks at him as a gift every single day. So talk about looking at adversity and creating something, like you say, how will this story end? I love that, Carol, because with trauma, you're so right. People look in the moment, and they get so myopic, I call it, or centered just on the trauma, that they don't look past it. And trauma sets you back into the rearview mirror,
Right.
which really stifles that person. And then, once they kind of get the right assistance, they start to recognize that's not me. That's something that happened to me. So, and once they're able to do that, they're able to reconnect with hope. So go ahead, Carol.
As you're talking too, I want to give a word of encouragement to people who say, how can I word this? Many people have gone through a lot of things, and you may look at them and say, you're so strong, and I could never have done this. You've got incredible strength, and so you're kind of labeled a strong person. Somebody pointed out this to me years ago, and I so appreciate this, and it's the strong people that need your encouragement more than the weak. And I never thought about that before, and now I see that. So people in my life who especially now, the people that I'm dealing with at the show, etc., I encourage them, because most people are saying, oh, you're so strong, I wish I could be more like you. But you know what? They need that too. They need to say, you know what, is there anything that you can talk about? Is there anything that I can maybe help you with, or help you get a new perspective on? Because they're always looking at them, and so what happens is we're draining them constantly. We're draining these people. You might have a good friend that you're always looking for advice or strength or whatever. They need it too.
Absolutely. So, and I often say the emotional person, because they show it, it's a smart way to get help. But sometimes the person that is so well put together that what happens is it's almost that they need to develop capacity to ask for help.
Yes.
Even though there's support.
So often, they ask.
Yeah, how are you doing? I know you've been through a lot of things, and you look unscarred, and you're always well dressed. But how are things with you, truly? And I think, I've seen both. You're so right. But sometimes the most put together people, and I've seen this in my practice, or just people that I've known, are sometimes the people that need the most help.
Yes. Well, they need the encouragement. They need that support, right?
Right.
And when somebody pointed that out to me, and the other thing I think that strong people have a tendency to doing is denying it. Oh no, I'm fine. No, everything's good. And it's like, really?
How can it be?
And pull it out of them, because there's an element of pride there too. Like, I've helped so many people, and I pulled myself up so many times. Surely I must be, I'm okay. No, I need the word. Hey, you know what? I've got you back.
Right. I can tell you as a therapist, I need help. I can't, in the
course. Yeah.
But I have the support in that I have people that I go to weekly to be able to get that help, right? Yeah. But maybe there's other people that with not the same backgrounds, like you're right, that they just need people to just say, hey, how are you doing? And that's such a simple thing. So Carol, this has been an amazing experience, not unlike me being on the other end. So I thank you, because you were probably one of the first blogs that the podcast that I did when I launched my book. So thank you so much. And now I'm, to be able to interview you has been an honor. So is there any last words that you want to share with the listeners? I want you to tell them exactly what your website is. Okay. And how to get a hold of you, and what maybe any other social media that you're on.
Okay. Basically, all social media is under either Battered Hope or Never Ever Give Up Hope. And contact me. If you have a story you want to share, you want to get out there of how you've overcome, or on the other end, if you just need somebody to chat with, or tell me your story. How do I get through this? I'm available. Okay. And Facebook, my website, Never Ever Give Up Hope, battered hope. On and on and on. I see my dog in the background again. I apologize.
You see, that gives really nice context to your beginning story, and now we're ending with something really cute.
And if you have a dog that needs rescuing, don't contact me. We've got far too many.
Oh my goodness. Oh my God.
Oh, anyway, thank you, Roxanne. This has been awesome.
Thanks so much again, Carol, for spending the time. So everyone, thank you. So hopefully, as you can hear from what Carol shared, is that hope is just something that at times we all struggle with it in life, but it's really about perspective. So finding that bigger thing that helps you stay focused on universally while we're here, or just to remember the little things, like I said, about seeing something beautiful, or smelling something, or having your favorite cup of tea. Just some small things sometimes is all that we need. And like Carol said, this is not the end of the story. I love that line. That's absolutely amazing, because what a nice way to pop us back into reality, because a moment in time is not our story. So again, thanks again for listening to Authentic Living with Roxanne. If you'd like more information on authenticity, leadership, and mental health and well-being, please go to my website at roxannederhodge.com/course, and there's a free course that you can sign up for. So thanks again.